It's 2025, and a storm is sweeping across American college campuses, not over sports or exams, but over the very future of diversity in higher education. The debate is no longer confined to student groups or faculty meetings. It's become a national flashpoint, drawing the attention of lawmakers, activists, and families across the country. The question at the heart of the storm: should universities be allowed to consider race, background, or identity in their efforts to create a more inclusive environment? More than 50 universities from Arizona State to Yale are under investigation by the U.S. Department of Education. These are not just elite Ivy League schools, but public institutions and technical colleges, all swept up in a wave of federal scrutiny that is unprecedented in scope and intensity. The accusation is clear and jarring, that their diversity and inclusion efforts, once celebrated as progress, are now being recast as illegal racial discrimination. The very policies designed to open doors for underrepresented students are being challenged as violations of federal law. For students and families, the uncertainty is palpable. Many are left wondering if the opportunities they hoped for will suddenly disappear, or if the support systems they counted on will be dismantled. This is no bureaucratic blunder. It's a coordinated, nationwide campaign targeting diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI. The federal government is wielding its power to reshape the landscape of higher education, and the effects are rippling far beyond campus gates. Programs built to level the playing field for marginalized students, mentorships, scholarships, cultural centers, are suddenly being cast as discriminatory. The intent behind these programs is being questioned, and their future is now uncertain. Since President Trump's inauguration, over 100 investigations have launched, with a laser focus on DEI. The administration has made it clear, any initiative that even hints at considering race or ethnicity is under the microscope. The message from Washington is unmistakable. Any program that considers race, even to foster diversity, is now suspect. The legal and political stakes are enormous, and universities are scrambling to interpret new rules and avoid costly penalties. University leaders are left reeling, forced to defend programs they see as essential against a government that calls them discriminatory. Many administrators are caught between their mission to serve diverse student bodies and the threat of losing critical federal funding. For years, diversity was a badge of honor for universities. Now it could cost them their federal funding. The fear is real. Without government support, some schools may have to cut scholarships, close resource centers, or even reduce enrollment. The administration's language is stark, accusing schools of promoting Marxism under the guise of equity. Conservative voices argue that DEI programs are a form of social engineering, while supporters insist they are vital for correcting historic injustices. It's a battle of ideologies, fought in lecture halls and offices, with the future of higher education hanging in the balance. The conversations are heated, the stakes deeply personal, and the outcome far from certain. The stakes have never been higher for American universities. As the nation watches, the choices made now will shape not just who gets to attend college, but what kind of country those colleges will help build in the years to come. How did DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, go from a set of campus policies to being labeled a federal crime? The answer is a story of legal battles, political strategy, and a rapidly shifting national mood. In just a few years, what began as a debate over college admissions exploded into a nationwide movement, reshaping the very definition of discrimination in America. The turning point came in June 2023, when the Supreme Court struck down affirmative action in college admissions. The decision sent shockwaves through higher education, ending decades of precedent and forcing universities to rethink how they build diverse student bodies. For many, it was a moment of reckoning, one that signaled the end of an era. That decision, intended to limit the use of race in admissions, opened the door for a sweeping conservative campaign. Activists and politicians seized on the ruling, arguing that any policy considering race, even in the name of equity, was now suspect or even illegal. The Trump administration quickly seized the moment, making the fight against DEI a central pillar of Project 2025, a sweeping policy agenda aimed at reshaping the federal government. Conservative think tanks and advocacy groups rallied behind the cause, framing DEI as a threat to American values and meritocracy. President Trump vowed to gut DEI not just in universities, but across all federal agencies. He promised sweeping executive actions, targeting any program or policy that appeared to give preference based on race, gender, or ethnicity. The message was clear: DEI would no longer be tolerated at the highest levels of government. The real escalation came on February 14, 2025, when Education Secretary Linda McMahon sent a memo to every school district and university in the country. The memo warned that any race-based preferences, no matter how small, could cost institutions their federal funding. The stakes had never been higher. The Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights was now tasked with rooting out any program that appeared to give an advantage to specific racial groups. Investigators began combing through scholarship criteria, mentorship programs, and even student clubs, searching for evidence of so-called reverse discrimination. Suddenly, programs designed to support Black, Latino, and Native American students were reframed as discrimination against white and Asian American students. The backlash was swift and intense, with critics arguing that DEI initiatives had gone too far, while supporters warned of a return to exclusion and inequality. The battle lines were drawn, and the investigations began. Universities found themselves caught between federal mandates and student demands, as legal teams scrambled to review every policy and program for compliance. The war on DEI was officially underway, igniting fierce debates on campuses, in courtrooms, and across the nation. What started as a legal ruling had become a cultural flashpoint, with the future of diversity and inclusion in America hanging in the balance. At the heart of this sweeping federal crackdown is the PhD Project, a nonprofit organization with a bold mission: to diversify the faculty ranks of business schools across the country. Since its founding, the PhD Project has worked to break down barriers for underrepresented groups, believing that a more inclusive academic environment benefits not just minority students, but the entire student body and the future of business education itself. Out of 57 ongoing federal investigations into diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, a staggering 45 are focused on universities that have partnered with the PhD Project. This pattern has raised questions about whether the organization's efforts are being unfairly targeted, or if they represent a broader shift in how DEI programs are being scrutinized nationwide. For decades, the PhD Project has provided mentorship, resources, and a sense of community for underrepresented students pursuing doctoral degrees. Its supporters argue that having diverse faculty members in business schools leads to richer classroom discussions, more innovative research, and a more equitable academic landscape for everyone. But now, the Department of Education claims that these partnerships may cross the line into race-exclusionary practices, putting the very programs designed to foster inclusion under intense legal and political scrutiny. Prestigious universities like Arizona State, Duke, and MIT, once proud to showcase their DEI initiatives, are now being forced to defend these programs in the face of federal investigations, public controversy, and the risk of losing critical funding. The investigations don't stop with the PhD Project. Scholarships and financial aid programs, specifically designed for minority students at institutions like the University of Alabama and the University of Minnesota, are also under fire, raising fears that opportunities for students of color could be rolled back nationwide. Even K-12 schools are not immune. Programs that support students of color at the elementary and high school levels are being questioned, with school boards and educators now facing tough decisions about how to continue serving their diverse student populations. The investigation process itself is grueling and time-consuming. Universities are required to turn over mountains of documents, respond to detailed federal inquiries, and justify every aspect of their DI programs, all while the threat of losing vital federal funds hangs over their heads. Administrators are stretched to their limits, trying to balance compliance with federal demands and their commitment to diversity. Even well-intentioned programs that have helped countless students are suddenly vulnerable, and the uncertainty is taking a toll on campus communities. The rules have changed almost overnight, leaving universities, students, and faculty in a state of anxiety and confusion. The stakes are enormous, not just for the institutions under investigation, but for the future of diversity and inclusion in American education. Universities aren't backing down quietly. Leaders argue these investigations misunderstand DEI's purpose: inclusion, not exclusion. They say diverse campuses enrich everyone's education and prepare students for a global world. The PhD Project in schools like Ohio State now emphasize their programs are open to all, not exclusive. Still, the pressure is intense. Some schools like Arizona State have already cut support for DEI initiatives to avoid federal penalties. The chilling effect is real. Universities are dismantling programs they believe in, just to avoid costly legal battles. DEI advocates fear this is a major step backward. The fight for academic freedom and inclusion is far from over. The Trump administration and its supporters see this as a defense of fairness, not an attack on diversity. Critics argue DEI programs amount to reverse discrimination, undermining the principle of merit. They say scholarships and opportunities should be based solely on qualifications, not race. Conservative media and activists frame DEI as divisive, rooted in Marxism and critical race theory. They call for a colorblind society, arguing that DEI creates resentment and division. For them, these investigations are about restoring equal protection for all students. On campus, students are divided. Many students of color see DEI programs as lifelines, providing support and a sense of belonging. They argue that a merit-only system ignores deep inequalities and erases hard-won progress. Meanwhile, some white and Asian American students feel excluded by DEI, saying it unfairly penalizes them despite their achievements. This fuels resentment and a sense of betrayal, with some welcoming the federal crackdown as overdue. The debate is raw and personal, with students on both sides feeling their futures are at stake. The campus has become a microcosm of the national conflict. The war on DEI has sparked a fierce legal backlash. Teachers' unions have filed lawsuits arguing the administration's memo is unconstitutionally vague and chills free speech. They say the threat of lost funding forces universities to self-censor and dismantle valuable programs. Meanwhile, the Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights is overwhelmed, hundreds of staff laid off, regional offices closed, and a record number of complaints piling up. Traditional civil rights cases are pushed aside as the agency focuses on DEI. Critics warn the most vulnerable students are being left behind. The system is stretched to its breaking point. These investigations are a flashpoint in America's culture wars. The fight over DEI is a proxy for deeper battles over history, identity, and equality. For conservatives, attacking DEI energizes their base and taps into narratives of grievance. For progressives, defending DEI is about protecting civil rights and inclusion. Every university investigation becomes a skirmish in a larger national conflict. Political polarization leaves little room for compromise or nuance. Universities are caught in the crossfire, trying to serve students while navigating political minefields. The campus is now a battleground in America's endless culture war. As the dust settles, higher education stands at a crossroads. The risk isn't just financial. Losing federal funds could cripple universities, but the deeper threat is to their mission and identity. If diversity initiatives are dismantled, what happens to campus's ability to serve a changing America? This battle will decide whether universities can proactively build inclusive communities or must adopt a hands-off, colorblind approach. The answers will shape not just education, but the nation's future. The war on DEI is about the story America tells itself, about equality, opportunity, and who belongs. The stakes are nothing less than the soul of American education.